Hey guys, Cameron here from Palmetto State Armory, and we're back with another Coffee Talk episode. And today I got a very, very, very special guest for you. His name is Chris Andrews from KAK Industries. Appreciate you coming on, Chris.
I appreciate you, bro.
Thanks for coming.
Much respect.
Yeah.
Thank you so much.
So a lot of people don't know this about Chris, though, is that he used to work for PSA. So we've known each other for what, almost 10 years now?
Yeah.
You know,
maybe a little more than that.
Yeah. And so, but now we work with KAK on a lot of small parts and parts that we use on our daily builds.
Sure.
So thanks for coming on. We're going to talk about that, but I want to talk about your life before the firearms industry. So tell me a little bit about Chris Andrews before the firearms industry.
Man, that's an enigma. So, you know, my 20s, I spent a large amount of time touring, playing in a punk rock band from Columbia, Stretch Armstrong. Shout out Stretch. They're actually playing Furnace Fest here in a few weeks. So
nice.
I'm going to go watch that. It'll be awesome. And then played for another band called Evergreen Terrace from Florida for quite some time and toured a whole bunch, you know, played live music for a living for a while and got to travel and see some cool stuff. And that was kind of what I did before getting into guns.
So what did, where did you get tour? Like, where was your favorite place to go?
Favorite place, man. Europe was always a treat. Australia was always awesome. You know, you go to Europe for 30 days at a time and just play festivals and stuff. Yeah. So Europeans in general, like they honestly enjoy live music. I won't say enjoy it more than Americans. They're more passionate about it. So if you go to a festival here, yeah, there's people there and they're having a good time and enjoying themselves. You go to a festival in Europe and these people are rabid, especially for American bands. If you're an American band in Europe, it's wild, dude. Like they love American music, especially American punk and American hardcore, stuff like that.
What makes that difference though? Like what do you...
I just think that the festivals there are probably run better. You know, they're nicer, they're cleaner, there's nice bathrooms. You know, it's not always like, oh, I have to pay more to get to this special area for a good bathroom or something. You know, it's everybody has access to good facilities and, you know, I don't know, it's a nicer atmosphere.
So what's your favorite gig that you played over in Europe?
We used to play a bunch of big festivals. I'm trying to remember the names of them, but I mean, we'd play festivals to 30, 40, 50,000 people, you know, just
that's awesome.
People as far as you could see, you know. But I mean, honestly, the festivals were cool, but I really enjoyed the smaller venue, 300-400 cap, you know, spots where everybody in there was there for a reason. It wasn't just like they went to a festival for music. It was like, we're here to see this band.
Yeah. Yeah. Know? So you're not going to see like a different band and you guys are opening or you're a part of the festival lineup.
Yeah, they came to see us.
Yeah.
Right? So, you know, those shows, to me, it's a little more personal, you know, a little more personal space. So those were probably the most fun. I really enjoyed touring Europe just because you got to see a bunch of cool stuff, you know, the culture and stuff like that over there, the food. Australia was always awesome. Australians are super nice, very clean. It's a really cool country to visit. Food was really, really good. So I don't know if I necessarily had a favorite place. I've been to a lot of different places, but I would say probably Italy or Spain specifically because of the food.
Yeah,
you know,
big food guy.
Big food guy. Love to eat. Love to eat. You know, so
what instrument did you play?
Play bass guitar. I can play drums. I can play guitar. Not very well.
Yeah.
But bass was my main.
You look like a bass guy.
Do I? Yeah. Just sit back and, you know, don't draw any attention to me. You know, that kind of thing. Yeah.
Yeah.
Low key.
So what is Punk Rock Gun Club?
So Punk Rock Gun Club is a little side, I call it a passion project, I guess, that me and Joel, who also works for KAK, started. We've been talking about it for years and years, really long before either of us worked for KAK. We were both in like punk rock growing up. Joel's, you know, from Charleston. And we just talked about how like there's this overlap between guys that are into punk and hardcore music or like that subculture and then guys that are into firearms. And so a lot of the people that I know that were into punk and used to go to shows or maybe even guys I toured with and stuff like that also in bands, those guys are now into firearms. And it's this weird like time. I'm not saying they're the same because they're not. They're two completely different things as far as the people involved. But I think it's like the mindset. It's like, okay, punk rock is like, anti-authority. Don't tell me how to live my life. You know, help out people if you can, kind of thing. And I think a lot of people in firearms are the same way. Like a lot of people who are like very passionate about owning firearms or you know, supporting the Second Amendment community. I think that they are very passionate about people not telling them how to live their life. I'm going to do my thing, leave me alone kind of deal, you know? So I think there's some overlap there as far as those two subcultures. So we started that, and it's pretty much just like we put out apparel or we'll put out random stuff that we like, and if people buy it and they like it, cool. And if not, also completely cool because we both have regular jobs. It's not a full-time venture by any means.
So what is Punk Rock Gun Club at its core, right? So what are you guys going and like hosting events, or what is Punk Rock Gun Club?
We've supported a few events, and we've got some stuff going on in the future that we're gonna do, but it's essentially just we're gonna do some get-togethers where it's like-minded people come hang out, grill out, whatever, spend some time together. We're really just trying to push forward the idea that you can be into heavy music or fast music, and be a little bit off the beaten path, and also still be into firearms. Firearms it's not a cookie cutter community
for sure.
So we're trying to like say the same way that punk rock and that community is very inclusive or very accepting and very like, hey, come be a part of this. We feel firearms should be as well. So that's kind of where we're at. We're just trying to, I guess, show some overlap between guys who are maybe heavily tattooed, maybe use a skateboard or whatever, and listen to loud music. And now those dudes are into guns, and it's just a cool little sect of people, I guess.
So how did you first get into firearms? Like, how did you begin to get into the firearms industry?
So I got in the industry long after I got into firearms. My dad, my uncle, my grandfather, all were big hunters. I learned how to shoot guns on a rimming nylon 66 22. You loaded the bullets through the buttstock of the gun. There's a rod that pops out. You load the bullets through. It's a semi-auto 22. Super cool gun. I've still got the one that I learned on.
That's awesome.
I've got 2 or 3 of more that I bought over the years, just because it's a you don't see them very often. Obviously, they don't make them anymore. So hunted most of my early life, shotguns and rifles and stuff, and then after touring and stuff like that, I kind of had gotten to the point where I'm like, at that point in my life, I wanted more as far as, a house and, car, boat, how these aspirations of stuff that I wanted, that at the time and the position I was in, touring was not going to get me. And so I was like, okay. And I'd become a little disenchanted. I'd been to a lot of the same places, and you don't appreciate it as much. And so that to me was the point where I'm like, hey man, it's probably time for you to make a change. Right. Fast forward, got a job. Pete Wright, actually, before he worked at PSA, obviously friends with Jamin, and was like, hey man, I told Jamin, I got this guy, a friend of mine, who's looking for a job, and Jamin was like, okay, well, send me down to Caleb, and got me interviewed, and here we go. That was my first foray into firearms. I was already an enthusiast, but that was my first foray into the industry.
And so when you started at PSA, what was your job?
I was an armorer.
You're building
just build uppers all day long, start to finish.
Yeah, and then what did your next job? Because you moved up in the company.
So I essentially started as an armorer, and one of the things that not to put Pete in the on point or in the spotlight, but Pete was like, look, if I'm going to get you a job, or if I'm going to put my name out there for you, you better be the best damn whatever it is they want you to be, whatever that job is, right? So took that to heart, and I tried really hard to be a good armorer. I think I was. They basically kept saying, okay, well, you're doing good at this, so we're going to move you over here because we need some help in this area, whatever. So I did dang near every job in the shop at the time. At that point, everything was under one roof, and it was a tiny building. I mean, it's behind Fern.
Yep.
And so I just moved around, and finally, after doing all those jobs, I got promoted to shift lead, and I was actually over the night shift. We had a night shift at the time for a while. And I was over the night shift, and then Alex Rainey, he was the purchaser at the time, worked for Joe Weir. He left, and he actually went to go work for a larger, I think it was for Walmart, doing procurement now. So, but he left, and they were like, "You want to do procurement?" And I was like, "I don't know what that word means, but sure, I'll do it. I'll give it a shot.
I'll give it the old college effort."
Yeah, and honestly, man, I just took to it. I think being in purchasing, you need to be personable. Your people skills got to be pretty polished. I think you have to be at least somewhat, if you're going to be a good purchaser, you need to be pretty good at negotiating, good at reading people, that kind of thing. And so, I don't know, man, I naturally took to it. I loved it. And so, kind of worked my way into that position. And I think I asked Jamin next time you see him if he thought I was a good one. I think I did pretty good at it, So, and that's kind of what I did for the rest of my time at PSA.
Yeah.
Just try and purchase items or make deals to help further the company. So,
Yeah, for sure. So what are you doing now at KAK?
So, titles are silly. My title, whatever, is business development, but that's just essentially glorified sales. I handle like all of our super large accounts for the most part. We actually just hired recently within the last couple months. We hired a new sales guy, Ryan. He's been doing pretty good. He's got us into some pretty big places too. But generally speaking, in the past, I'd handled all of our largest accounts and just making sure that those customers were happy.
Mhm.
I still dabble in purchasing just because I still have those contacts and those relationships. And just trying to make sure that like I'm just adding value to the company. My job is essentially to help make KAK successful.
Yeah.
Whether that's sales, procurement, whatever I need to do. It's mostly sales on a daily basis, but I dabble in other stuff.
Yeah. So let's talk about some of the stuff. So what are you guys making at KAK?
Whew. It would almost be easier to talk about what we don't make. We make a large portion of the actual AR platform. We obviously are not furniture manufacturers. We don't make furniture.
Yep.
We make mostly small parts. We got a ton of Swiss machines, like 60 Swiss machines almost. Swiss machines. Can't talk.
Yep.
60 Swiss machines for all the small parts, pins, detents, all the lower parts. We actually do actual lowers now as well out of forgings. We've got a barrel cell in Missouri. We've got a BCG cell, both robotic. What else? Castle nuts, pretty much, like I said, almost every part. We're not a spring company. We don't make springs, but all the other little small parts for the most part, we make in-house. If we don't make them in-house, we contract those out to people who have been doing it for a long time. The same people that everybody else does.
For sure. So, but you guys are supplying those small parts and some of those parts to a lot of people in the industry.
Buffers are another big part for us. But I would say, and I'm not just saying this because I work for KAK. I'm not sure there's another company in the United States that puts out as many buffers as we do.
Yeah.
This is this is just since I've worked at KAK, we've shipped over 2 million. And I have got not one return.
Yeah.
So, if there's another company out there that's shipped 2 million buffers in the last, 4 years, I don't think so.
No, I don't think so either.
But we make a lot of different stuff, man. We supply a pretty large portion of the industry with small parts, buffers, the off the shelf stuff that doesn't need to have someone's name on it. Correct. It just helps the gun function.
Flash hiders, D10s, and buffers, buffer tubes, right? I mean, there's a lot of stuff, right?
Yeah. A lot of those parts that no one needs to know where they came from or who made them, as long as the quality is there and they're functioning as they should.
Yeah,
right?
for sure. So how, KAK obviously supplies a huge portion of OEM parts out there, but now you guys are starting to dabble in finished goods essentially, right? Sure. So talk to me through some of the new stuff that you guys are coming out with and kind of what that looks like for the future of KAK.
Okay. So we've got, obviously, K-Spec BCG is probably the most notable or most known part. We've come out with over the last couple of years, obviously the industry's been kind of rough.
Yep.
So our thing was, and you guys have also done a great job of this, come out with new stuff. Mm-hmm. I mean, it doesn't need to be crazy new technology. It doesn't need to be trying to reinvent the wheel. Just come out with some stuff that maybe people haven't seen before, or something that's a little bit different, and try and roll stuff like that. So we're pretty quick at like prototyping and coming out with stuff. So we kind of a bunch of different flash hiders. Kurt's really big into machine guns, and so he will find a machine gun, like maybe even one from like World War II, and he'll take the flash hider off of that and be like, "I'm going to make this for an AR." Just make it half 28 thread or whatever. Yeah. So he's done a bunch of that. But the K-Spec was kind of the flagship of like what we tried to do. We've done it with buffers as well. We've got some buffers that are essentially like an enhanced. They've got a little bit of a spring, so it helps with the recoil and the function of the system itself. But the BCG specifically, we've got two versions: side vent and down vent. Mm-hmm. And we came out with the down vent first.
Yep.
And what it does is it takes that gas and pushes it down towards the magwell fire control group area, and eliminates the gas coming out of specifically when shooting suppress. I back up. So it's for suppress use mainly. And what it does is it takes that gas and just redirects it. And so instead of having a bunch of gas in your face when you're shooting suppress, either semi or full auto, it's going elsewhere. Yep. And it doesn't make it any dirtier. Shooting suppress is already dirty.
Yep. 100%.
It's not dirtying up your mag or your rounds any more than it would normally. So it's really honestly, in my opinion, again, I'm not saying this because I work for KAK. If you're shooting suppressed, you should have a K-Spec BCG.
I mean,
I truly believe that. If you watch the videos between a standard BCG or a regular BCG that puts the gas out normally versus ours, it's night and day. And I mean, especially if you're shooting full auto, I mean, dude, you're getting blown up with gas in your face. It's a health risk. It's not fun. It's dirty as crap, and you can't hardly see.
Well, and I think also with times now on Form 4s for suppressors, like I think it's more important now than ever. Like more people are getting into the suppressor market, right? Like, so having a way to direct that gas elsewhere is vital, right? I mean, I only shoot suppressed.
Same here. I literally will not. If I go shooting with friends that don't have suppressors, I'm almost like, dude, what are you doing here? You know, like you should own a few, even if, and nowadays too, with all the different companies obviously have mounting systems to where you can just take a freaking, some kind of muzzle device, put it on 4 different rifles, and now one suppressor will go on whatever you want.
100%.
So there's one, yes, you should be shooting suppressed. 2, if you're shooting suppressed, it should be a K-Spec BCG, just because if there's another product out on the market that does what we do, I'm not aware of it. I think we're the first to do that. And when we first came out with the down vent, everyone was like super skeptical.
Well, that's what I was going to say. What was the feedback like? Because I remember seeing it online, but what was that like on your side? As with
any like newer technology or new ideas, people are always going to be like, I don't know about that.
Yeah.
You know, like, and then, so we had a bunch of guys on Reddit,
of course,
a bunch of people on forums and stuff, just, that's not going to work. That would be a terrible idea. And so we sent it out to a bunch of different people, including quite a few outside the industry, independent testers, and to test it out to see, it actually will, Griffin Armament they actually contacted us after they'd used it. And we're like, hey, we don't know if you guys know this. Obviously their sound testing equipment is much more advanced than what we have. That's not our thing.
Yeah.
But they were saying that when paired with a suppressor, it actually slightly lowered the decibel rating even more, which is pretty cool.
Yeah.
Obviously you're already shooting suppressed, but every little bit helps, right?
Yep.
So it first came out, got a lot of, I won't say bad feedback, but more just like opinions.
Yeah.
People that had never used it, never shot it, didn't own one. Well, I don't think it'll do this. And so then the feedback was, why don't you guys do a side vent version? And I'm like, okay, if that's what you guys want, we'll do what the customer wants. So we did. And then literally as soon as we came out with the side vent version is about the time all the data and the down vent stuff started taking off. And now the down vent outsells it by like, I don't know, 15, 20 to 1.
Yeah. Because now people have the data. They shot
understand the down vent, how it works and all that. And so now you've got people outside that either people in the industry that put out videos and people trust those individuals, right? So there's like, okay, well, this guy said it works. I'll try it out. And then customers start buying and they see that it works. And they're like, oh, wow, this is actually really good technology.
Yeah.
So that has been probably, as far as newer products for us, we've come out with a ton of different flash hiders and other things. A CQC buffer system that it basically takes a shortened buffer tube and then a smaller buffer to make a pistol even smaller, more compact. We've done just random stuff like that, but the K-Spec BCG, I think, has really been what I would consider to be like a game changer as far as like technology or like furthering. At this point, man, it's so difficult to come out with something new for the AR.
Oh, 100%.
It's all been done 100 times.
100%. And what are you going to do is just Cerakote it a different color, right?
Yeah.
But I think it's cool to see though, because as what I see from KAK, right, on my side is obviously we work with you guys for some parts, but like seeing you guys forging your own path, doing retail stuff, it's cool to see that technology being innovated out there, right?
Yeah.
But also Kurt is a madman, right?
He's a wild Midwestern man.
Yes, he is. So like some of the launcher stuff. So talk to me about some of the launcher stuff you're doing.
We got into the launcher game too. Trying to make like chalk rounds and stuff like that for people. A lot of stuff can be 3D printed. We've dabbled in that world as well, just because we saw a need or just a gap between people that are 3D printing their own stuff or coming out with new firearms or whatever in that space. The best way to do that is off the shelf parts.
Yep.
So if you've got a 3D printed chassis, or if you've got this idea for a cool space looking gun or whatever, you're still going to need a AR-15 barrel, a fire control group or whatever. And so we kind of like a couple years ago, kind of went down this path of, hey, if you're a 3D printer, if you're big in that world, like come to us and let us provide you with small parts and stuff like that there's some parts of the gun that just have to be made out of metal. I mean, that's just how it works right now. I'm sure at some point in the future that will change, but for now, that's kind of where we're at. So that's how the the grenade launcher stuff. Kurt had one and was like, I kind of want like a simpler way, a less expensive way to shoot chalk rounds or fun stuff and just play around with the house. You can make fireworks out of it. You can do all kinds of stuff, you know?
Well, and I think that kind of goes back to Kurt as like what he's doing with KAK is like, he's thinking outside the box.
Absolutely.
Right. And
Absolutely.
like going back to the point of the down vent stuff, right? Like, you know, hey, this isn't innovative, but people are like nervous to take it on until they see some data. But like Kurt's like, hey, you know what? I'm doing it, right? Like I'm going to try and I'm going to do it.
Yeah. And I think he's had quite a few products, you know, over the history of KAK before I worked there. He's had some ideas and some products that came out that maybe weren't a hit or maybe weren't, you know, marketed correctly or maybe just weren't that great. But like he's always just been like, okay, well, if this doesn't work, I'm going to try something else.
Yeah.
You know, figure it out.
Cause he's doing like, I've seen in the past, like making different dies to make reloading stuff.
He's really big on odd caliber stuff.
Yeah.
So, you know, especially when it comes to the AR platform, like Wildcat calibers, he's really into that stuff. So, I mean, that 22.556, I mean, you're pushing 4,000 feet per second. I mean, that's wild. It's crazy, bro. Yeah. It's absolutely crazy.
So where do you see the future of KAK heading?
Well, we've got that large facility that we built in Missouri, you know, making barrels and BCGs and stuff like that. I'm sure Kurt's always going to be trying to push the envelope a little bit, do something different. We're always going to have something, I wouldn't say necessarily weird, but something oddball that we're working on. That's just kind of our niche, I think, is like, that's our space in the industry is that, but we're just going to keep supplying people with parts, man, as long as they're willing to buy them, you know. I think the barrel sale is really starting to take off. So, OEMing barrels for people is probably going to be a big thing for us. Obviously BCGs that sell as well. So that's kind of our new kind of focus, because the Swiss machine stuff, this in the California facility, that stuff is I won't say it runs lights out. We've got customers for that stuff. That stuff it's almost on autopilot, right? Whereas the BCG and the barrel cell, that's the new thing that we've put a bunch of money and time into. And so that's what we need to get up and rolling and kind of get on autopilot as well.
For sure. So let's talk a little bit about your addiction to Coca-Cola.
Let's talk about it.
So where did that come from? I mean, how many Coca-Cola tattoos do you have?
I have one, and I don't know that it's necessarily an addiction. So like at this juncture,
I've never seen someone so passionate about Coca-Cola as I've seen you.
Coca-Cola is better than Pepsi.
Okay, all right.
I mean, you know, people can have their opinions, but
they're wrong.
Coca-Cola was first, number one. Dude, Pepsi, it just tastes something. It's like too sweet, man. Like, you know, like, and I'm not a drinker, but I mean, dude, Jack and Pepsi, who drinks that? Nobody. You know what I mean? That's just how it is to Coke. Dude.
Yeah.
I don't know. I think Coke tastes better. I don't drink it very often now because I'm at this point in my life where health actually matters. Whereas the past, I didn't care. Yeah,
getting older. Yep.
So, you know, turning 40, it's okay. I can't drink as many, you know, sodas as I would like to. So I make it happen when I want to. But yeah.
Who has the best Coke?
Oh, Mexico. Absolutely.
I thought you were going to say McDonald's.
McDonald's Coke is a special kind of deal, man. For people that don't know, you need to look that up. Their Coke is special for a reason, and it is good. But I also don't really go to McDonald's anymore.
Yeah.
So that's my issue. If someone goes to a McDonald's drive-thru in the car, I will get a Coke. Absolutely, you know. But
when in Rome.
But a Coke is definitely better than Pepsi.
So
I can't say what I want to say about Pepsi because then you would be able to put this podcast.
Okay,
out,
well then let's hold that back.
Well, I'll hold it back.
So Chris, I've known you like I said about 10 years now.
Mm-hmm.
Yep. You are the most free spirit person that I've ever met in my entire life.
Thank you.
You have this bounce around addictive personality that is the craziest thing I've ever seen. So let's talk about your car addiction.
Okay. Oh man.
So
I'm going to start here. My house looks like a used car lot.
Yes.
Where
did that come from?
I don't know, man. You know, my family gives me crap for it. And my mom doesn't really, my dad does occasionally, but you gave me Hot Wheels as a kid, man. Like I literally grew up, like we didn't have cell phones or pagers or video games or whatever. Yeah. I had Hot Wheels, man. I had Hot Wheels and G.I. Joes. And so I can remember I had a specific blanket that my mom had, like a comforter type thing that had all these like designs in it. And I would use those as racetracks. And so I'm like all kinds of, I mean, it didn't, at that point in my life, I'm sure I had like Hot Wheels that were like trucks or things that weren't fast. Yeah. But I was racing them. You know? Yeah. So I don't know. I grew up on Hot Wheels and Always liked cars. My first car I ever bought was a 69 Mustang. Had it for about 3 months, lost my license to speeding.
Of course.
For a year, which was junior year of high school was rough. I had to get rides everywhere. Hey, where are you going? Can I go with you? Cool. It was terrible. And when I finally got my license back, I had, was it SR22 insurance or whatever the high risk insurance is. And so I couldn't afford a nice car. So I had a 2-tone brown and white Cutlass. Oh. Let me tell you, the fact that any females in high school thought I was attractive driving that thing is a miracle. But yeah, I've just always been into cars, man. So at this point, I've got a 95 Ford F-150 truck.
That you're trying to sell for.
I'm actually, it's for sale. So if you're looking for a truck, I got you. I've got my 93 Land Cruiser that I've had, since I lived in California. I've got a 2005 Porsche 911. It's black. It's actually in the shop right now. I wrecked it last weekend.
Oh, geez.
I don't want to talk about it. And then I got my daily, or like what I would consider my like longer distance car. I've got a 2012 Audi A3 hatchback, turbo diesel, gets like 40 miles to the gallon. Yeah, it's also in the shop right now because the key's stuck. The key's stuck in the freaking ignition.
That's my point. All your cars that you have, like they don't work.
Well, a couple of them do, The thing is too, though, if I didn't have all these cars, I wouldn't have anything to drive. Because 2 of them are in the shop.
It's always something broken.
Yeah, it's always something to fix.
So now let's talk about motorcycles, because you're a big motorcycle guy too.
I do. I've got my motorcycle right now is actually at Eric Schmidt's house.
Huh? Funny. Yeah. Out in Utah.
Out in Utah. I gotta figure out how to get that thing back to my house one way or the other. He might just keep it and ride it. I don't know what he's doing with it. Yeah. Put something. Every time I go out there, I find something different in my freaking side boxes. Some weird things in my side boxes.
Of course he does.
Yeah.
So you drove across the country, right?
Yeah, I've been across the country a few times on that bike. First one was I bought that bike. It's the only vehicle I've ever bought in my life, brand new. I bought a 2018 BMW GSA 1200. Decked it out with all the stuff I needed, side bags and all that. And five of us total drove across the country for like 2 weeks. It was awesome.
Yeah.
We hit national parks. We stayed at Airbnbs. We camped. We did all kinds of stuff. And since then I've been kind of back and forth a few times on it. So
when you went out to visit Eric in Utah, didn't you go through Moab?
We've been to Moab. Yeah. Eric and I have been to Moab quite a few times.
Yeah. And so what was that like?
Awesome. I have not done Moab on my big bike. I've done Moab on dirt bikes, and that's a blast. It's hot, but it's a lot of fun, and it'll beat the hell out of you. I mean, and especially when you get older, you get done from a day of dirt bike riding and your body's like, dude, I'm done. I'm tapped,
So one of the other things I wanted to talk about is our crazy adventure to Idaho. So me and you.
You sure you want to talk about
I don't know if I want to talk about it, but I think it's funny.
It is funny. It is funny.
Me and you went out to Idaho mule deer hunting, right?
We did.
And we trained.
This is probably 8-9 years ago.
Yeah. And so we trained for like 7 months. And mind you, we're in South Carolina, so we have no elevation. But we trained for like 7 months. I remember we were talking like we were putting weights in our backpacks.
Yeah, every day we were talking to each other, keep us accountable.
Yeah, 100%. And we trained, right? I lost like 50 pounds because I was training so hard for this. In the first 15 minutes of getting to the mountain and realizing that we were actually just bushwhacking our way up the side of a mountain, I remember I was whacking my inhaler like I was addicted to heroin or something, right? Like every 5 minutes, I was just like we couldn't do it.
I remember specifically thinking like you said, 10, 15 minutes in thinking, I'm not sure that we can do this.
100%.
I remember specifically having a conversation with you where we were saying we were going to take 5 steps at a time.
Do you remember that?
5 steps and we'll stop.
Break.
We'll break for a minute. 5 more steps. And bro, it was brutal. It was hours, 5-6 hours up that mountain.
Yeah. Do you remember when we had to get on our hands and knees and it's literally just like a 7,000. Yeah. Army crawling. And there's like a 7,000 foot drop off on the other side. And we were like, what are we doing?
Like, are we going to die 60, 70 pounds on your back? That was the only year. So that was the first time I went mountain hunting. Obviously you too.
Yeah.
I've been back almost every single year with Ben. I got my tag this year, going back again this year.
Good.
But that was the first and only time. And you remember John was using walking sticks.
Yes.
And we were like, this old guy with a walking sticks?
Yeah.
Like, you don't need those. That was the first and only year I have not used walking sticks.
Dude.
Every year I go back, I have walking sticks and they're wonderful.
So funny story though about it is like, I've only ever been camping like twice in my life.
Mhm.
Because we weren't a camping family.
Mhm.
And the 2 times I went camping was in like my neighbor's backyard.
Okay.
And then we go up to Idaho and we get there and we walk 5 hours up a mountain. We didn't even get to our spot yet. And it was getting dark. So we made base like a little camp, right? And no one wanted to put the tents up. And we're literally laying out under the stars on the side of a mountain with wolves howling in the background. I don't think I slept a wink that night.
I slept really good that night.
I didn't think I slept a wink.
Yeah.
How about the night when we were up there
Mhm.
and you shot that buck
Mhm.
and we had it hanging next to us and something was eating it?
I shot a buck, skinned it. I had the rack, the head in the rack, kind of about 10 feet from our tent, tied to a bush actually, because they had said something might come try and take it. I'm like, well, I don't want someone taking my shit, I didn't want to keep it in the tent in case I was a bear. So, and again, this is our first time mountain hunting. I really had no idea what to expect. I'm laying there, we're sharing a tent. You were asleep. And I heard something, man. And I don't know if it was a squirrel or like
a squirrel at night,
chipmunk, or I don't know, bro. Like what's up there? You know what I mean? Like some little animal, coyote.
Yeah.
Whatever. It sounded like something was like in camp messing with that skull. And for whatever reason, man, I just thought it was a bear. Like in my head, I'm like, there's a bear here. There's no other reason for anything else to be here. It's a freaking bear. Dude, I have never thought I was going to have a heart attack so bad in my life. My heart was beating so hard. And I was like, Cameron, wake up. And finally, like, you weren't really waking up. So I had like yelled at John and Ben. And like, John is a savage and just got out of his tent and walked around.
Which is crazy. Because you were telling me that was like a top 5 most scared you've ever been in your life.
That's probably the most scared I have ever been in my life. I really thought there was a bear. I thought there was a bear right outside the tent. I had the freaking gun. I had that 2A arms. Yeah. 6.5 Grendel right beside me. And I'm like, if I have to shoot through this tent of this bear, I'm going to do it. Like I was like, you mentally I was ready, yourself? Dude. I was so scared. Yeah. And John got out and looked around. I was like, there's nothing out here. I'm like, bro,
there's something there.
I must have been like hallucinating or whatever. It was weird.
So, but in Idaho with the tags, like you're able to shoot a mule deer or a bear, right? Or like I think a mountain lion too, right?
Yeah, I think possibly a wolf.
Yeah, and a wolf. That's right. Mm-hmm. That's awesome. Well, Chris, thanks for coming on the podcast with me. I appreciate you. So where do people go to find out more information about KAK?
KAKindustry.com obviously is the website. You can hit us up on social media, KAK Industry. Punk Rock Gun Club, same thing, punkrockgunclub.com. Punk Rock Gun Club on Instagram, follow us. I've been trying to get better about posting on there. If you got cool skateboarding videos, hit me up. Yeah. And yeah, man.
Appreciate that. Well, thanks for coming on. If there's anybody else you want to see on the Coffee Talk podcast, make sure you like, subscribe, comment below. Let us know what else you want to see. Thanks again for watching.